What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Pages from Rock Bottom. I'm Matt.
And I'm Ken. In tonight's episode, we have Nate with us. And I do want to, I'm going to say this right off the rip so I do not forget because I'm staring right at it. I have to say, viewers' discretion is advised because we're talking about drugs, possible overdoses, addiction, and legal involvement. So beware if it triggers anybody, please be mindful of that, like, because we are going to be talking about stuff like that. So tonight's episode is when the world has to explode. Tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What's up? I'm sorry, I missed it. My cats are doing something over here.
It's okay. Tell us who you are and where you're from.
Okay, I'm sorry. My name is Nate Stacy. I live in Utica, New York. I'm originally a born and raised masshole, though, from Lenox, Massachusetts.
Oh, Lenox, Massachusetts.
Yeah, now I live in Yankee Land, you know? We get along well, though.
Yeah.
You went back to Massachusetts for a little bit, didn't you?
Yeah, when I first came back for a little bit, not long. I mean, I've been back to visit a few times, but I haven't moved back. No, once I left rehab, there was, I came out here, which, like I said, is strange. I live in the city that I used to come to get drugs from, which was quite, you're supposed to get away from. And I basically moved right in the middle of ground zero, which was very interesting. Yeah. But luckily there's a very big recovery community here in Utica, which is really good, which was very helpful.
Yeah. There's a lot of places that don't have that, though. They don't have that recovery community, and they need that connection. So that's important. What was that like going back to where you used to go buy drugs?
Oh, it was a little stressful at first. When you're raw, like right out of rehab, shaking and, just trying to do everything but think about what I really wanted, and knowing that it was right outside my door, literally, I could just walk out and get whatever, at any time, which added a whole extra, inspiration, to it. I also was able, the other thing is also to see it every day, what I could do. It was always a reminder that I am one bad decision from being right back out there again, and that's something that we all have to think about, and I believe that we have to remind ourselves that it only takes one bad choice and it'll all snowball from there,
I've repeated that cycle multiple times. 4 trips to California, and then the trip down here. Still relapsed after a year, and then my wife locked me in a bedroom for 3 days and made me eat cheeseburgers and took my phone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
She saved my life that night.
When he says it, it sounds terrible. You know what I mean? But realistically, I was just trying to do for him what he couldn't do for himself at that moment.
Right, right. And I'm glad to hear it worked because a lot of times it doesn't. You know what I mean? That's amazing. I did, luckily I had some family that rallied. Nobody locked me in but somebody probably should have. I know I spent a few weekends. Somehow I had an incredible ability to always if I was getting arrested, it was on a Friday, and I never didn't get to see the judge at least till Monday, so going through it, with the suicide, the Fred Flintstone thing, because I was, I made the mistake of telling them that I was, a heroin addict. Of course, by the second or third time through, they pretty much knew anyway. But yeah, it was going through jail, just all of that. It's just like they say, jails, institutions, or death. You know what I mean? There's three possibilities if you stay on that route, you know, and I'm so glad, Matt. But, you know, that's the other thing too, though. Like I always tell, you know, don't ever be upset about relapsing, you know, like as long as they're still alive, there's still hope. You know what I mean? And most are going to, you know what I mean? Like the stats show that most are going to relapse at least once. You know what I mean?
I mean,
And it's you know, it's about being supported for each other and being there, you know, and letting people know that they can tell us, you know what I mean, and say, you know, that you know, things are getting to me, I'm, you know, I'm feeling overwhelmed, all of that, which is so hard, especially for men, you know, I mean, in these
yeah.
days, you know, to ask for help, I mean, or for anyone really. But, you know, when some of us have been raised in that masculine, you know, I'm the man, I got to do, which is kind of like how I wasn't raised that way. I just, you know, I didn't have family really. As growing up, I was mainly with my mother and all that. So I didn't have a father figure in my life. So I kind of became that and became the hyper, you know, other way. So any kind of asking for help was weakness, you know, and I think a lot of us get caught up in that, in the drug life, you know, because you can't show weakness out there. You know, man, you want to say, you know, man eat man world anyway. But if you get into that whole drug world, you know, like I said, there's one or three options, you know, one or three possible endings: jails, institution, or death, truthfully.
And that's true.
I think for me personally, I needed that last relapse. It it kind of re-inspired me after that, you know, and I started digging deeper into myself and trying to figure out, okay, what did I miss? What did I overlook? Okay, so really what it came down to is pretty much what we just talked about right there. Like I didn't allow myself to be vulnerable, right? Because my pride and ego is too big. I'm fine, you know, but really I'm not. Yeah,
Right.
so I needed that last relapse.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
but
we
I
get
always
out once
tell
we take
people,
the drug away, there's an automatic, like there's a huge void
yeah,
that we have to fill with something. And it's usually and usually it's usually sex, because we if we try to stay away relation, you know, from the drugs, with, you know, it's relationships, and it's always, oh, and I always tell myself, if I could only get a good job, I'd be all set. You know, if I could
yeah,
just get a good apartment or a good house, I'd be all set. It's all this stuff except what's really, you know, what's really at the root of all of it. And from it's been my experience, and when you learn, like especially if you get into working, you know, with addiction, that it's usually it's trauma.
yeah,
Somewhere in the bottom of all of that is trauma,
yeah,
and it's something, and it's going to come, eventually it's going to come up to the top. And we've spent years and years pushing all that emotion and all those memories and everything down with the drug. So once we take it away, boom, all of a sudden all this stuff comes back, you know. They're called emotions. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like I remember, bro, sitting at rehab with a bunch of men watching TV, and all of a sudden I'm like starting to tear up. And I got a tear my, you know, someone's like, "What's
yeah,
wrong?" And I'm like, "Why won't anybody save the puppies?" You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
bugging
yeah,
out, and I'm really not that. And I'm like, is it that? Is it that? You know what I mean? No, there's probably something else way back that I never dealt with. You know,
yeah,
and that's and a lot of that is, it's natural for most of us to pick up a drug. You know, that's the point. Like I'm not trying to be myself. I'm trying to leave the world. You know, I'm looking for a way to step outside of myself, and drugs gives me a really good way of doing that, whether it's outside of myself or inside, right? Either way I'm going to go. You know, like we always say in the rooms out here, like the worst possible place for an addict to hang out is right here. You
Don't
know, the
get
six
there.
inches between these ears. That is the most dangerous place for me to hang out alone.
yeah,
Absolute worst place. You know,
yeah,
I'm always going to give myself great ideas. I'm going to tell myself dumb stuff. Like I remember sitting in rehab going, yo, I'm not going to be doing any drugs anymore. So that's cool. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sell it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna sit with mountains of stuff that I used to steal, beg, borrow, and steal for, and I'm just gonna put it on, I'll bag it up, and I'm gonna sell it. You know what I mean? I'm gonna be a gentleman drug dealer now. Play that tape forward, right? Eventually I'm like, oh, I can have a little bit. You know what I mean? If I don't do that work and dig inside and figure out why I do the things I do, why I react the way I react in different situations, I'm going to always go to the same thing. And the problem with drugs is that the answer to every freaking problem is more drugs. You know what I mean? And the worse it gets, I can always think, oh, if I could just do a little more, I'll be fine. You know what I mean? Love meth. Oh, I'm free. I got to work tomorrow, so I got to do more meth. You know what I mean? Oh, I got to take the kids. I got to do more meth. Oh, I don't feel so good. I need to do more meth. Right now, I haven't slept for 3 days. I haven't eaten for 3 days, and I'm wondering why I can't catch the shadow people that are just outside of my eyes. Right? And what do I think? Well, maybe if I do more. That's the horrible, the most disgusting thing about drugs is the only answer to all of my problems is more drugs. But it's not. I'm just digging myself deeper and deeper and deeper. Like you said, you didn't like that last relapse. Yeah, that's what I always hear. They only get worse. They never get better. Yeah. I've never heard say anyone, oh, that relapse wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
No, they just get worse and worse. That's why we got to play that tape forward is another thing that I hear a lot, and I love it. I already know the end of this movie, but I'm still going to hit play. If I don't address what's really, really wrong and why I do the things that I do, then eventually I'm going to hit play. When I should just put it back in the case and sell it to the antique store where all the other VHS tapes belong, right?
Yeah. So, Nate, let's start at the beginning. Growing up in Lenox, Massachusetts, what did life look like before things started to unravel?
Before things started to unravel, that was interesting. I was, let's see, right before I was doing pretty well. I was married, had 2 kids, was still renting a house, but doing well, had a job. For the longest time, I was one of those functional addicts. I hit it pretty well from most people, but the ones that spent enough time with me eventually caught on. And I was able to hide it for quite a while, up until about the last 3 years when things really got bad. Once I got really into heroin, once I picked up that needle, man, I think a lot of people can look back and say, wow, once I hit that needle, there was no turning back. And that's really when things went bad. I got to the point where selling everything, working as a server, working, just as long as I could, to close or whatever, just to get that cash, to get out, to get more drugs. Everything was always about somehow finding a way to get more, and no matter what I did, I always thought that I would quit. I always thought in my head that one day I'm just going to wake up and I'm just, and I would think that when I'm not doing drugs anymore, I'm going to, go out to dinner, go do things that most people do. And I'm going to hold a job and everything's going to go great. But that day never came until I've been stabbed. Basically, like within the last couple of months, I was out stealing copper, the old thing. There was some bad things I did for drug dealers. Got stabbed in a fight. And you would think that these kind of things, I got stabbed in the back, literally twice in the back. And you would think these things would make you stop, but it didn't. It took someone overdosing in my home, when with my ex and my kids there, to finally, that was when everything came crashing down. And unfortunately, I was one of the people that had to do that. There's some people that get out early enough, but for most of us, you know, I had to be dragged out kicking and screaming, you know, unfortunately. So, but that's really, like I said, that's the way it's going to end. You know, I'm glad it, you know, it did, you know, end the way, I mean, I'm not crazy about it. You know, I'd rather still be with my, you know, have been, you know, protected, you know, kept the family and all of that. But now I'm actually really blessed as far as that. My ex and I get along better than we ever did when we were together. So it actually worked out well. I'm really blessed that way. We co-parent amazingly. You know, I always, you know, I count that as a blessing every time I see someone arguing with their ex. You know, I hate that with, you know, with kids. It's like, yo, one way or another, you're stuck together for at least 18 years. Why make it so terrible? You know what I mean? I don't get the point of that, but it's a thing people do, I guess.
Who's your friend behind you?
Which one?
He's up on the up there.
Oh, that's Mo. I've got 4 around here. I'm actually surprised he hasn't jumped in my lap yet. He will soon.
Well,
But I've got 4. I've got 4 cats. All of them have been abandoned at different times in different buildings I've lived over the years here in Utica. And my kids think it's my job to save them all. So, yeah. And I think they just want to keep me single for the rest of my life. I'm the crazy cat guy, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
so far it's working pretty well.
Oh.
So you talked about trouble escalating and your friend overdosing. Can you share what that moment did to you and how the wall became involved?
Oh, that was one of the worst times of my life. Obviously, that, you know, it was one of the darker moments. All I remember, you know, I went into panic mode. You know, I had thought that you know, we would meet. It was another friend she had children too. And we'd have play dates and they'd come over and we'd all, you know, take turns going into the other room, you know, and getting right. Or, you know, for those that might be listening, I don't know, getting right usually is one way we say getting high out on the street. You know, she went in, it was her turn, and we just heard thud, you know, and I was like, uh-oh, that can't be good. And I ran in, and sure enough, she was on the ground. This was before I knew anything about Narcan or any of that kind of stuff. I was in complete criminal mode back then. And, you know, my first instinct was to pick her up and put her in the car and take her someplace. You know, I hate to admit that was my, you know, my first thought. And it's one of the, you know, I definitely not one of those times I'm definitely not proud of. Luckily, we didn't do that. My ex came into the room and started doing CPR, and I called 911, and, you know, they came, and you know, the fire department came, everybody came, and the children were in the other room, but, you know, they didn't, you know, just the fact that they were anywhere around in any way, you know, CPS was involved, and that was really the end of pretty much everything. I knew this was not going to go well. They ended up taking her. She was all right. She went to the hospital. They got her back. Narcander. She's, as far as I know, she's still out there. And then that was a Friday, actually. And actually, I can remember because it was what, Friday, the 23rd? No, 24th, it must have been. Is the next day, the next day, my mother-in-law and aunt came literally the next day, scooped up, took the kids, took my ex, took everything and went. And then, so that left me in the apartment, with really nothing, nothing to, you know, no real resources. So I ended up leaving January 31st. So it was literally the next Friday. My ex went off to rehab, and then I went the following Friday. So we a week apart. So her sobriety day is a week before mine. A little annoying, but but so I went out. She went to Vegas, and I actually went first to Conifer Park, which is right here in Albany, New York. And went through 10 days of absolute hell. I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Because I knew I was getting old at that point. I was what, 48 years old. And I was playing child, and I was still a child. And I knew if I did what, and this was just me, this was my own. I tell everybody, you do what's right for you. But I knew that if I had gotten Suboxone or any of that kind of stuff, that I would just walk out and sell it. Yeah. So I ended up doing I think it was a 20 milligram methadone taper, which meant I was able to sleep that night. And then for the next like 4 or 5 days, I didn't sleep. I went through it bad, even with all the, they do give you rehab meds and all that. And you're still going to go through it. I mean, there's no way I would have been able to do it outside of a rehab. But it took me at least 10 days before I even started to feel okay. And I was there for 17 days. And then at that point, for some reason, I don't know, insurance works, whatever. I was on my ex's work insurance. They wouldn't pay for the rest of my time there, but they would pay to send me to California. And by that time, it was like, what, Valentine's Day. Like I left like 2 days after Valentine's Day and headed out to California. That's where I met you, Maddie. Oh, yeah. But that was a dark day. I walked out of my apartment with literally what I could fit in one of my kids' backpacks and the clothes I was wearing at that time. Couple hat. I actually still have my Red Sox hat my sister gave me way back that I still have, and I have a black leather jacket that I managed to wear out of there. But that was it. Everything else I had to leave in that apartment.
I think
so. I had to walk out and start all over again.
I think you wore that Boston hat every day, bro.
I did. You know what? It's right here.
Show you.
Oh, sorry, Mo. I flipped Mo out there for a second, but yeah, there it is.
That's classic Nate, man.
Remember that? Yeah, bringing back memories, brother.
Hat on, headphones in. That's it. So January 31st.
But yeah, it's been a long road since then. Like I said, so went out there, then I came back, and then on April Fool's Day, bro, I came back. I don't know if you remember, but I left on April 1st of that year of 2015 and came back here to Utica. And that's where I live, and moved into one of the rougher areas of Utica, like I said, and everything I needed was right outside. But I was lucky; I had a fire under my butt, and knew that I needed to get to meetings, and I needed to change a lot really fast while going through the whole being. I don't know if you remember, Matt, but I got the call one day at rehab that about my divorce, that it was done. And went through quite a bit, which is one of the things, I went through hell with all of that. But one thing that I remind myself and other people is that I am not the first one to go through this, and I won't be the last. And if someone else can do it, I can do it too. And I did, luckily. But other people can too. You know what I mean? Like, I just remind if someone else can do it, I can too. And it comes down in with a little support, right? Like I get by with a little help from my friends, right? So.
So when you first got back, did you believe that just putting down the drugs would fix everything, or did you already know you got a lot of work to do?
Did I what? Sorry about that.
Did you believe that putting down the drug was going to fix everything, or did you know you were going to have a lot of work to do?
No, I thought I was, I thought it fixed everything. I mean, I came back, I'm like, oh, I'm clean now. Everybody should accept my apologies. I am, doing the right thing. I'm not breaking the law every day. Everybody should bask in my sobriety,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us come out like that.
Yeah.
And, that pink cloud that some people talk about.
That's real.
And then real life comes back. Your past. You remember that, that whole wreckage of the past? Eventually that, you turn a corner and it's waiting there to kick you square in the nuts. And that's the one thing that that a lot of us have to that we all have to deal with, what we've done and all the guilt, all the, but yeah, I knew I had to go. I knew I had a lot of changing to do. If I was going to, I didn't even know how to live anymore. You know what I mean? I didn't know what normal people do when they get things like money. I thought that was my biggest trigger in the world was money in my pocket, and I had to, and here I am working in a restaurant, waiting on people every night. And I'm like, what do normal people do? Oh yeah, they do things like go out to eat. They go out to, they go to dates, they go see movies and things like that. I had to get used to things like that. Beyond paying bills, planning, being there for my children, things like that, that I really had to learn how to do. I have to learn as an addict that it's not all about me anymore. Right. And that's probably one of the hardest lessons any addict's got to learn, because I'm always the star of my show. I know during my addiction I was getting whatever. I didn't care. Nothing would stop me from getting there could be 5 feet of snow out there and I got a bike with a flat tire. I am pedaling like nobody's business to get that. You know what I mean? To get to that hit, right? So if I could put anywhere near that kind of energy into my recovery, things should go fairly well. It's about, and that's where the hard part is too. It's the whole, I've got to be ready. Luckily I was ready. I was beat up enough. I had enough taken away from, or given it away. I don't say that, a lot of people say, oh, drugs, I lost everything. I didn't lose anything. I know where it all went. It's just not mine anymore. Due to my decisions, I didn't lose a thing. I sold it, or I traded it or whatever. I made the decision, I made it obviously that my friends were more important than my family, when it came to drugs and stuff, and that's a hard lesson a lot of us addicts learn too. Once we stop, those friends tend to disappear, I had mentioned before, I got, stabbed when I got stabbed, I'd gone down to supposedly keep a fight from happening and ended up getting jumped by 2 guys. And a third guy runs up behind me and stabbed me in the back. I don't know why. I was like, I'm fighting 2 dudes. I don't even know. I never even saw him. And then, now I just lost my train of thought for a little bit. But oh shit, I just lost where I was going with that. Where was I going with that? Or where did I start with that?
You were just talking about
the friends. So I ended up getting stabbed. I get out of the car, 2 guys jump on top of me, third guy runs up behind me. There was a crowd of 30, 40 people there, but everything had gone dead silent. I didn't know I had gotten stabbed, but all of a sudden everything just got quiet. And then they all turned around. The crowd kind of turned around, walked away. The guys walked away. The dudes I went to stop the fight, that I went to save, the friend that I supposedly went to save, was running. So the whole point to that was, when it got silent, the loudest thing I heard was my friend's footsteps as they ran away and left me there. And that was the hard lesson, about addict friends. You know what I mean? They're there, but when but when it really hits the fan, they're not going to be there. You know what I mean? And that's another hard choice that I take as an addict, is realizing when I start my recovery journey, the people that I spend my time with is going to change dramatically. You know, I'm going to lose some people along the way, which is okay. You know, that's one of the hard realities. You know, I always say when I signed up to lose friends, you know, to deal with a lot of people, a lot of death and everything, as soon as I put that needle in my arm, you know, and I didn't realize it, but I had signed up for a really hard life, and I was going to lose friends while I'm, you know, while I'm like risking my own life at the same time. You know what I mean? And supposedly the people that I think, you know, are my new clan and my family and all that aren't, you know, they're not going to be there once they're not getting what they came for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I said, it's all about the ego and everything. When I'm an addict, all I care about is me and getting my drugs one way or another, you know, in the end. And unfortunately, it takes a while for us to realize that we all think that way. And you know, now when I can count the friends that I did drugs with back in the day. There's only like 2 or 3 left that I did drugs with on a consistent basis, still alive. Most are dead. They're gone. You know, at one point I could say a lot of them were in jail, but they're not even there anymore. You know, and that's a harsh reality that we have to deal with as an addict. Not only that, you know, we're going to lose friends, and it's going to keep happening, you know. One of the worst horrible things it was horrible, but it's true. There's an old saying that sometimes you just got to step over the bodies. Meaning that sometimes someone's going to pass away, and a lot of times that's my first reaction. You know, whenever I heard someone die, you know, like I would, you know, my reaction was, oh, that's terrible. It was, oh, where can I get me some of that? You know what I mean? That's one thing I always say, that's kind of a difference between a heroin addict and like an alcoholic. When someone dies, the alcoholic says, oh, that's terrible. When are the services? And the drug addict says, damn, where can I get me some of that crap? You know,
it ain't gonna kill me.
Yeah. People talk about the insanity. That's the insanity. You know, we take it a whole nother level, you know. It's another thing, like people talk about slips. Like I hate hearing people, I don't even like hearing people talk about slips in like the rooms and things, because I don't get a slip. You know what I mean? Fentanyl will kill me. You know, if I do what an addict does, heroin and fentanyl, now it's fentanyl, let's be real. It's not even, there's very, very little heroin out there. But, you know, one shot of alcohol isn't going to kill quite a lot of it. You know what I mean? Well, over time, but I can do one shot and I'm down. And if nobody's around with Narcan or something, or to get me help, I'm gone. You know, and that's one of the, that's one of the harsh realities that we have to deal with. That's why when I'm in, like, I don't even like to hear people even talk about it, because it kind of sounds like we can do it. And it's like, no, you know what I mean? Like, do not. Once I get away from fentanyl, that's the horrible thing. That's why, like, when people, the times I'm most scared for addicts is right when they're getting out of rehab, or right when they're getting out of jail, because there's always that need or that want to either to celebrate. And a lot of times, and people don't think that I don't have the tolerance that I had 3 months ago or a year ago, you know, before I went to rehab, or a year ago when I went to jail, you know, and they tried to do that same amount, and boom, you know, they're gone. You know, that's what is the harshest thing about this drug, is it does not care. It will kill you, you know, and it doesn't matter if you're rich, poor, doesn't care what color you are, what size you are, nothing, you know.
Definitely will not discriminate.
What'd you discover about yourself once the drugs were on and everything you avoided was still there?
Once the drugs were gone?
Yeah.
Probably that I actually can, that I had more more in me than just finding drugs and breaking the law every day. that I had more to offer people. You know, I learned, that it's not about, that next high, that there's, life out there to be lived and a future. I never thought about the future. You know what I mean? Everything when I was, when I was in that addiction, it was all tunnel vision. There was one thing, I had to get a drug, and that's one of the most awful things that people that aren't addicted don't even realize, that even when I get the drug, I can't even be happy because I still got to think about how to get the next one. Like every time I get, I get high, it's just right back to the drawing board again,
Yeah.
But to get out of that and realize that I did have something to offer. Like, people ask me for things, about things, and you just asked me to come on here. With work, I was on a summit, just a while ago. I was on a panel at a thing, and I never would have thought, at the Albany Capitol Center, and I never would have thought anybody would have asked me for any kind of input on much of anything except how to get high.
It's moments like that we start to realize our pain has a purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's actually funny, because another one of my favorite lines of the rooms is that a guy says is that it always takes the right kind of pain, to make us change. Pain, unfortunately, pain is the great motivator when it comes down to it. And for a lot of us to get clean, it takes that right amount of just the right kind of pain. You know what I mean? I don't know anybody that, goes to rehab or goes into any of the rooms, on a winning streak. Like we say, I came here from jail. I didn't come here from the casino. You know what I mean? Like,
I remember when I first got introduced to NA, I remember going to my first meeting and I was like, these people are full of shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, nobody's this fucking happy all the time, dude.
What's wrong with these people?
Right.
It's a cult. What are we trying to do to them?
It kind of is, It kind of is, and they talk about miracles and all that stuff, but the funny thing is they're not huge miracles. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna ride around in limousines and have the Swedish bikini team with me or whatever. It means that, like, a miracle is being able to hold a job for some people. A miracle is not doing drugs that day. A miracle is being there for your kids. You know what I mean? Those are the kinds of miracles that they're talking about. They're not saying you're going to be a genie, wake up a genie one day or something. But these things are, these things are miracles to people. Getting a car. I didn't get my first car till I was, let's not even talk about that. But I was 49 years old. Yeah. Before I actually got my own car,
Man, I remember...
That's a miracle.
I remember going out to San Diego, and I actually used you guys to justify myself. Like, I was, how old was I? 20, 21?
How old was I?
And I'm in there with guys that are in their 40s, 50s. Fuck Pat, he was in his 70s. And I'm hearing your guys' stories, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not that bad.
Yeah.
So, I get it in my head. I was like, when I go back home, I'm not going to use heroin. I'm just going to cook meth and I'm going to sell it and I'm going to be all right.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I'm glad to hear I was helpful in that. I did that too, though, bro. I went to my first AA meeting a couple of times, and and I was like, okay, I'm not as fucked up as that dude. I'm not that crazy, so I must be doing something right. But that's one of the not yets. You know, if you ever hear that, I'm not that crazy yet.
For sure.
You know,
Not
I
yet.
haven't been arrested yet, right? I haven't gone to jail yet. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Everybody's like, "What's that? What's the not yet?" Because you ain't done it yet. You're just sitting here judging somebody else for doing it, but you ain't made it that far yet. But keep going down the path that you're going, and you're going to end up right in the same seat that person is, saying, "Not yet, not yet."
Yeah.
To somebody else just like you. Yep.
Right.
I was that person too. I was always
But
like,
on the
"Man,
same
I'm
time,
never
on the same token, like, yeah, like with the whole relapse thing, like, bro, you're an addict. We do, you know, I'm an addict. I do drugs. That's what I do. So I shouldn't be surprised if there's a relapse. I shouldn't beat myself up to the point. It's not the end of the world. You know, like I say, you know, as long as we're still breathing, there's still hope. You know, there's still that light somewhere at the end of the tunnel. You know, that's why, you know, there's, you know, fentanyl doesn't play games, you know, so I try not to either, you know?
Yeah.
No. You said that the world had to explode for you to want to change. Looking back, do you think you would have chosen it without that explosion?
I don't think it ever could have happened without it. You know what I mean? Like, I was not looking to, you know, like I said, I kept thinking that one day I was just going to wake up and just be done. And that day just never came. It just kept going and going. You know what I mean? It just kept going and going and going. And I was at the point to where, and a lot of addicts are like that. I just couldn't see my life without drugs. I couldn't even picture that. You know what I mean? I was scared to death of being sick long enough to go to rehab, even knowing that I'm going to get taken care of. But that was what I was the most scared of, you know? And you know, it's like we say, like you learn in the rooms too, it's fear, you know? And fear is nothing, you know what I mean? You learn all those little anagrams, like, you know, false expectations appearing real, you know, that is fear. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
So, what did growing up look like for you in recovery?
What did growing up look like for me in recovery?
Yeah.
I'm still working on that a little bit. I'm still a goofball. But like I said, like learning how to hold a job and pay bills and be there, go to kids' concerts and, you know, sports and all that kind of stuff. Trying to grow up. I still feel weird. You know what I mean? I'm not that, you know, school committee kind of guy, you know, or like, but I'm learning to be if I have to, you know what I mean? Like that whole thing that people say, I've heard, you know, a lot of people say that you stop maturing is when you do drugs and you don't start again until you quit them. And I believe that 100%. You know, how can I learn or grow in any way when I'm just always constantly searching for that next high? You know what I mean? When I only have one goal in sight, how am I going to reach any others? You know?
Yeah. I got to a point where I didn't think I was worthy of anything else. You know what I mean? I had no self-worth, no self-love. Like, you know, when in my active addiction, man, if anything did start to go right, I would self-sabotage myself so it wouldn't happen, you know?
Exactly. Huge thing. We addicts do that. And it's amazing. Like addicts, like they're not dumb. You know what I mean? Addicts tend to be very smart people. Why? Because we've had to learn how to survive and how to manipulate people. If there's one thing, you know, a couple things that we can do, it's, you know, I used to always say I can survive and I know how to manipulate somebody to get what I want at any point. So now it's time to learn how to put those skills into other uses, you know, and learning how to even do all that and thinking, like you said, that I'm even worthy of doing anything. You know, I never thought I could help somebody else get out of a situation I don't think I can get out of, you know, like, you know, that's one of the things, you know, like in the rooms, they say, you know, God, God has a great great sense of humor when he takes a bunch of people that are suffering from the same disease, but makes it so the only cure is by them helping each other. Right?
Yeah.
Which is scary because I don't want to help other people. That's not what the drug has taught me. Right? I don't want to do all that. But that's what keeps us once we learn how to get out of it ourselves, that guilt or whatever is part of what makes us go back. Once we're out of the fire, we're the ones that turn around and go right back in there and reach and put out our hand to pull out our brothers and sisters. That's why I love peer advocacy. I love to see how most of the people that work in social work or whatever have those kinds of paths. You know what I mean? And are able to, empathize with people and understand where they're coming from. And that's what makes people so effective with helping other addicts. And I'm glad to see that jobs, like peer advocates and all those are getting so popular now. Sorry, Nancy, but we definitely lost the war on drugs. That did not turn out well. Surprise, surprise. We declared war on our brothers and sisters, our aunts and our mothers. You know what I mean? Our fathers. Everybody was so declaring war on them didn't really work out well. Yeah. So now it's that's why I love harm reduction. It's about meeting people where they're at and not pushing them in either direction. You know what I mean? And just saying, okay, let's get honest with yourself. What are you willing to do? Are you ready to make a change? Okay, if you are ready to make that change, what are you willing to do right now? If you're not ready for that step, then let's look at how we can keep you safer until whenever, if you decide. You may never decide. That's okay too. That's something that people are going to have to figure out. Some people may never quit, but that doesn't mean they deserve to die. You know what I mean? Which unfortunately is an attitude that people I hear all the time, that this is kind of a harsh political climate these days. And I hear a lot of people say things like that. Oh, they made their choice. Let them die. What a horrible. Yeah. Really? I just want to do. Right?
The stigma around addiction, in some ways it's come a long ways, and a lot of ways it's gone the opposite. Yeah,
it's people fear change.
Yeah, for
people think that there's no other. They've taught one way. They either got to quit. They just got to quit everything or whatever. No, not maybe not, man. Maybe they can't. Maybe we can just let them do things a little slower. Let them go at their own pace. Let them make their own decisions and find. And just help them make, like I said, make better decisions make healthier choices along the way. And try to make things safer for them and the environment around them. Until maybe they will one day, or maybe they won't, but that's okay too. It's opiate deaths have dropped 30%, nationwide, recently. That's due to something, you know what I mean? And that's due, and I can tell by the way, I saw it myself with part of what the work I do. I go and I do follow-ups for people when they overdose. And I get their information, and then I go looking for them, whether if they have a home or if they're homeless or whatever, go look for them and offer them some kind of way, a way out, whether that's rehab or whether that's syringe exchange or whatever. However, it's all about meeting them where they're at and, not forcing them to do anything. Because Americans don't like to be told what to do. Not that we learned that over COVID, right? Not big on that, So maybe it's a little better to take an easier, softer way, and trying to see how they think. How might I help you? What do you think? How do you think I can help you? Is a much better, approach, I think, than throwing people in jail and getting them more. I mean, I don't know about you guys. Anytime I got thrown in jail, I just came out more mad. you know, like,
yeah.
Yeah.
you know, it didn't, there wasn't any, you know, there wasn't any choices. It was more mad and wanted more drugs. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I'm
And so,
gonna get out and show you, put me in jail.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get higher than I was when you put me in here.
right, right, right.
Been there. Been there.
Well, that's one thing. Like, I don't know if you remember the what is it, the preamble to HA? They say, um, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. And I've been told that that originally it said never have we seen a person fail.
Yeah.
And when before they put it out, they got together and said maybe we should change that word because there's wise asses like me that'll say, "Oh, really? You've never seen? I will fail like you have never seen before." You know, because that's kind of what addicts will do, right? You just said we have a nasty tendency to self-sabotage. Hi, Sebastian. Self-sabotage. So
Kitty.
yeah, this is Sebastian. Hi there. No interest in me whatsoever until I start talking, you know, into a phone or something. So,
It wants his camera time too, man.
Yeah, we have a Yorkie who's like that. He wants camera time whenever we're on, but we put him up today. So
What would you say to someone who thinks getting sober is the finish line?
getting what?
Getting sober is the finish line.
Absolutely not. I would say you're about to go on a very long journey, my friend. It's just like like we say, putting down the drug or the beer, whatever, is just the start. Like we were talking about earlier, if I don't do something to make a legitimate change in my life, I'm going to end up right back where I was, if not worse. If I'm lucky, I'll end up back where I was. More than likely, I'll end up dead these days, you know? But yeah, it's amazing to think. And that's one thing that a lot of people I wasn't prepared for, and a lot, like, you know, in rehabs don't prepare you for is that journey, you know, and how it's only, you know, everybody like, oh, it's all sunshine and, you know, rainbows and lollipops, but it isn't. You know what I mean? I like to be real, and I tell people, actually, to tell you the truth, it's going to get much worse before it gets better. Because, like I said, your whole past, eventually our past runs into us. You know, I've got to go back and fix everything in my, you know, like with me, it was my license. I had my license was suspended in 3 different states. I had to clean it up in 3 different states, and you know they all wanted money. You know what I mean? One thing about the law, they might let you slide on a few meetings or something here and there, but they will get your money. They will always get your money, you know? And so between all of that, you know, just to get the license back, just to even get a car, and then to find out, you know, this is like, I've been whining about this a lot lately, but it's true. You know, I lost my license for decades. And if you lose your license for so much time in most states, I don't know about Ohio, but you become a brand new driver. You're considered a 16-year-old again. So the insurance skyrockets, right? Up to like double. So, and the higher my car payment, the higher my insurance. So if I get like a car and I'm paying $350 car payment, I'm paying at least $700 in insurance. That's rent for another place. You know what I mean? That's just one of the things. So now I have to buy crappy cars that are probably going to fall apart. So I have to make a choice. Do I want to spend all that money on a newer car that I know is probably not going to break down? It might, but probably not. Or do I spend less money on the other car that I know I'm going to have to do repairs, but maybe I'll get lucky and not have to do repairs for a few months? Because I always got to pay that high part, right? The higher rate. You know what I mean? So these are the kinds of things that I got to deal with now. So I'm stuck going to used car salesman, which is always fun. You know, I'm used to scummy drug dealers, so it's, you know, a used car salesman isn't that much different. You know what I mean? Either way, they're trying to get over on you, you know? But, and then, so you've got things like that to deal with. And then if you've got say you've got kids, and you got another, and you go get behind on a couple child support payments. What's the first thing they do? Take away your license, right? That's always that. We've got some real top thinkers out there coming up. I always love that. We're gonna take your license away so you can't work, so you can't pay the child support, so we can put you in jail.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
These are the kinds of things that addicts are going to have to deal with that they don't tell you about in rehab. You know what I mean? So that's why I sell, like I said, I tell people it's going to get worse. I'm sorry, but it's going to get worse before it gets better. But once you get through it, right, what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. Once I do all these things, life gets a lot better. You know what I mean? Like, I love this life. I would never trade this life for the, thank God I'm not where I was, I'm not quite where I want to be, but thank God I'm not where I was, right? Like, hopefully I'm going to be even better, man. I am today, someday. But
tomorrow. I will be better tomorrow. Do something better tomorrow.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, we appreciate you coming on and sharing your story, and
absolutely
for being honest and vulnerable. But I wanted to ask, like earlier, but like where you was then and where you are now. What is one thing that you wouldn't change for either side of it?
Where I was then and where I was now?
Where you are now. Is there something that you didn't change about yourself, or is there like...
And won't change? All those street smarts I picked up out there on the streets. Like, I think like an addict, which is scary. You know what I mean? I can, addicts have an amazing problem-solving skills. Like and that is one thing I would never trade. It's good luck getting anything, but most people are going to have a really hard time getting over on me, and that's because of what I've learned. Even clients, things like that. I know we were doing all these things. You know what I mean? So, but like I said, it would absolutely be everything I learned on the street. If only I knew then what I know now. You know what I mean? But I would never, you can't trade that, that kind of experience. That's the wonderful thing about experience. It's my experience. It's your experience. Your experience is your experience. Nobody gets to tell you anything different. Nobody can change that. Nobody can tell me what, nobody can qualify it for me. Nobody can say it never happened, because it's my experience. Your experience may have been different, but it doesn't make my experience any less legitimate.
I used to have an old timer. He always told me, he said each of us have different stories, but what we all share is pain.
Yep.
Pain is universal.
Mm-hmm.
True. Very true. But
pain is also But pain is also temporary, right? Suffering is a choice, right? I choose. If I choose to hang out in here, I'm going to suffer, and I choose to do that, right?
Hey, so from every segment, we use something you say to make a shirt or a hoodie or something like that.
That we sell on our my shop for our merch for Pages from Rock Bottom, and that was it. So don't be surprised if I don't tag you saying like, "Hey."
I threw out a bunch of one-liners I pulled out. You got a few to choose from, I think.
Yeah, I was typing a couple a little bit ago, and I was like, man, I hope he doesn't think that I'm just like totally ignoring him, like on my phone.
Truthfully, I'm used to that kind of treatment from women, so it wouldn't affect me.
He said,
anyway.
He said, pain is temporary, suffering is a choice.
Absolutely.
I like that.
That will be the shirt. I will post it.
I wish I could say it was an original, but it's not. I heard that. I heard that in the room still, but it's a good one.
Now we're about to trademark that. Bitch.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's gonna be on a shirt. What's your favorite color, Nate?
What's my favorite color? Blue.
Yeah. Blue? Same.
Or black. Whatever looks good. I love black.
Me too. Goes with everything.
Yeah. Can't go wrong.
Can't go
Exactly.
wrong. Red, blue,
And
whatever.
it's slimming.
Oh, dude, man, I don't know if anything is anymore.
Awesome.
Oh man.
She had the day off, and I was like, man, I know when I get home, there's going to be a cake or there's going to be something. Sure enough.
Aye. Are we still on, by the way?
We are.
Oh.
It's fine. It's fine.
I'm about to turn the blink around the cigarette and everything.
Oh man. So if you're watching this and you feel like your life is falling apart, hear this. Sometimes the breakdown isn't what finally makes room for the breakdown is what finally makes room for change.
Mm-hmm.
Take that, you know. And if you could take anything away from it, you have 3 recovering addicts on live right now talking to the world about struggles and everything that they've been through, and we've survived. Yeah. All because we made the right choice. Some of us, that the judicial system made it for us at first, but then we decided to start making the right decisions for ourselves. So, and that's probably one of the smartest things I ever did in my life, was make a healthy decision for myself and say that enough was enough and that I wanted something different for me. Mm-hmm. So, remember, if you guys are still out there, you guys are suffering, you guys can reach out to us. Just, hit us up on Messenger. I'm Kim, this is Matt, and I know Nate, he helps people too. So like, hey, hit us up. Say, hey, I'm struggling. You got any good advice for me? Do you know any good rehabs? We know a few.
Yeah.
We know a few. But just come on and let us know. Talk to us. We'll talk to you. So if you're suffering, just reach out. Reach out for sure. Got anything? Nate, you got anything?
Not really.
Okay.
Just can't do it alone, folks. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
You cannot.
Make that first choice. Make that right choice. Reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out. That's the first and probably the hardest step. Sometimes there's nothing heavier than a phone.
Oh, yes. They say that 500-pound phone, pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
Pick it up and ask for help. 500 pounds. I always was like, what? Yeah, pick up that 500-pound phone and ask for help.
Yep.
It is real. The worst thing that's going to happen is it not work for you. But what's happening right now is not working. So try something different. Something might stick.
Yeah.
Something might stick. Oh, and we are not on Wednesday because it is Christmas Eve.
Yep.
Tomorrow, Christmas.
Yeah. So the day before Christmas, we are not airing, and we'll be back Monday.
Wait a minute, isn't there a war on Christmas this year? Is that, or did they put that up? Sorry.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Yes, Merry Christmas, everybody. And like I said, we will be back on Monday, the 29th. I had to make sure that's what it was. With Haley. We're going to be with Haley. I was scheduling her for a totally different day, but then I was like, hey, I have this day open. So, but we'll be back Monday with Haley, Nicole, and we'll see everybody then, I guess.
Yeah.
Nate, we really appreciate you. Thank you. Your story was great.
Anytime.
Matt's told me a lot about you. I'm so glad I got to hear it. I just kind of just sat back and I took a little bit of notes.
Nate,
cool.
I really do, brother. I want to thank you. Even though it didn't work or click with me at that time, what I've learned from you guys out there, like it planted the seeds in me. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying. That's what it's all about, brother. That's what it's all about. And you're not the first one, and it won't be the last, right?
Yeah.
We do drugs. That's what we do. All right, I love you, man. Stay safe, and yeah, I'm keeping an eye on you. You already know that.
Yeah.
But you got my direct number now too. So
Yeah.
hit me up. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, have
Bye.
a good one.
And don't forget, we're not on Wednesday. Check out the merch. Echoes of Recovery, and we will be on Monday with Haley Nicole. Her segment is rebuilding from the ground up, and we can't wait to hear. I'll be sharing that out again. I already shared it once. I'll be sharing it out again as it gets closer to the time. And Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope everybody, has a great one.
Yes.
And stay safe.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Eat food, enjoy family.
Do all the things.
All the things.
All the things. Eat cake just because you can. Probably not a good thing. I probably shouldn't eat cake.
It's sugar cookie time.
It's
baby.
sugar cookie. Yeah, I guess I'll be making sugar cookies. It's fine. But check out the merch. Join us Monday, and we will see everybody Monday.
Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.